As Super 8 filmmakers begin to handle complex productions, they begin to have creative reasons for separating sound from picture. There are times when the picture should continue while the sound stops. There are other times when the sound should continue while the picture stops. These are the times when the filmmaker has the option of using double system sound. Bob Doyle, president of Super 8 Sound, explains.
The basic difference between single system editing and double system editing is that with single system, the editor is always cutting both sound and picture. A sound cut is a picture cut is necessarily a sound cut. In double system, the editor has the ability to choose the best picture to use at this moment, and conversely the best sound to use at that moment without disturbing the other. Any sequence of pictures can be juxtaposed against any sequence of sound.
This juxtaposition of picture and sound can be done regardless of how the film was shot. If it was shot double system, and if the sound was recorded on full coat like this, the editor has only to keep the sound takes and the picture takes together through the editing stage. Of course, in any double system sound shoot, the recorder must be kept in sync with the camera. This is done by either a crystal control or by a pilot tone cable which connects both camera and recorder. If the film was shot single system, or if the sound was recorded on ordinary magnetic tape, the sound must be transferred to full coat before double system editing can begin. After editing, the sound can be transferred to the magnetic striped film. Before you begin editing, look at your film on a projector so you can see things you might not notice on your small viewer. Bad facial expressions, visual distractions, and bad camera movement show up readily on a large screen.
I myself have been in broadcasting television for 15 years. Came up
It's a good idea to also listen to your sound takes and make brief notes about their quality and content. Good notes will help save you time later on and will help make your editing easier. The splicing medium you use depends on your personal preference. Some editors like to make their splices with cement, which permanently joins two pieces of film. Other editors use tape, which can be removed and the scenes easily rearranged. However, the full coat soundtrack must be spliced with tape only. We will concentrate on the use of tape as a splicing medium for both film and full coat. There is, of course, a wide variety of double system editing equipment available. In fact, today, Super 8 editors can obtain everything they need to put together professional-looking films. But all of this sophistication is not essential. We will use this simple setup, which is inexpensive and has everything an editor needs. It contains a pair of rewinds, a viewer with a sound head, a 2-gang sync block, a splicer with transparent tape, and a sharpened grease pencil. We will also use a bin in which we'll hang individual scenes. To begin editing, put your soundtrack and picture on the left rewind. A spacer helps keep the film and full coat separated, and a spring clamp applies tension to hold them in place. In the same way, put your take-up reels on the right rewind. Again, use a spacer to keep film and full coat separated, and add a spring clamp for tension. Turn on the sound and turn up the volume. Switch on the light in the viewer. Now, thread the film through the viewer. The rollers provide tension for your film and help hold it flat in the gate. Thread the full coat over the sound head. With this viewer, the oxide side of the track is up and the perforations are away from you. Your first step will be to line up the sound for each scene with its corresponding picture. To do that, find the frame of picture where the slate is closed, the light switched on, or the hands are clapped together. If your viewer has a notching device, notch this frame. Then take the film out of the viewer and mark the same frame with a punch or a grease pencil. Put this frame in the sync block. Thread it carefully over the teeth so you don't scratch or tear your film, and close the block. Pull your full coat soundtrack through the sound head until you hear the clap, buzz, or bang of your syncing mechanism. Mark this frame with a permanent marking pen and pull it over to the sync block. If necessary, make another mark that's easier to see, and then carefully put the soundtrack in the block and close the block. The sync mark on the track should line up exactly with the one on the film. Again, advance picture and sound and find the frame where the first action begins. If your viewer has a device to notch this frame, notch it. Then roll picture and soundtrack through the sync block and find the marked frame. Put a white grease pencil mark on the frame line of both the film and full coat. This is where you'll make your cut. Put them into the splicer and cut them together. This, of course, will cut off your sync marks, but if you continue to cut both picture and track together, they should stay in sync. As you advance them through the viewer, look for the final frame of the scene and put a grease pencil mark on both picture and track in your sync block. Once again, make sure they're both the same length. Put both film and full coat in the splicer and then cut them together. Now put a piece of tape on the head of the picture and soundtrack. After you've finished marking the scene number on the masking tape, you can hang everything in your editing bin. Continue through the film until every scene has been hung with its corresponding sound. Of course, some of your scenes may have been shot silent. Music or effects may be added later. But for now, you'll have to use a piece of leader called slug to represent the sound you will add. This slug could also be used to represent the picture, which will be later added to sound you now have. While your picture is in the sync block, mark a piece of slug to its exact length. This slug will help you maintain sync throughout your film. Cut both and hang them together in your editing bin. When all scenes have been cut apart, you're ready to begin assembling your film. Start by splicing equal lengths of leader to the head of both your picture and soundtrack. Remember, track is always spliced on the base side only. If you splice the oxide, some sound will be lost. Since this is a wraparound splicer, the excess splicing tape must be trimmed off the full coat so it doesn't cover the soundtrack. Continue assembling your movie in this way, splicing each scene in order. At this stage, there should be no more cutting, even if you know you're only going to use part of a scene. This fine cutting should be done later, after you've viewed the film as a whole. Now, watch your movie a few times to get a sense of picture and sound working together.
Can go out and get.
When you decide on the fine cuts you want to try, mark both picture and full coat. If you're cutting original, try not to cut too much off. If you have to splice something back on in mid-scene, your film will look jumpy to your audience. After you make all your cuts, your film should begin to have a smooth flow.
I'm optimistic about Super 8. I think you have to look at it in a historical context.
If your film doesn't already have a magnetic stripe on the edge, the stripe can be added, and the sound can then be transferred from the full coat to the stripe. Now the film should be cleaned with a soft, lintless cloth and movie film cleaner with lubricant. This cleaning will help make your film look better and run more smoothly through the projector. There is nothing complex about editing double system Super 8. It just takes practice and a little patience. Bob Doyle has some words of advice for those wanting to get into Super 8 production.
I think my advice is always primarily contingent on budget and the kind of funds available to a beginning filmmaker or film production organization. And it is Super 8 that people turn to when they're looking at low-budget operations. And so I'd say if we had a few $100s to start, buy yourself a single system sound Super 8 camera and a small editing setup, and you're in limited production. From then on, you can grow to several thousands of dollars well invested for double system editing equipment, for interlock projection equipment, video transfer equipment. The sky's the limit in a sense, but the sky in the case of Super 8 is still an under $10,000 investment for a complete production facility.